The whole point of writing, you've got to really give up your entire life to it. It dominates, you've got to be able to concentrate, you've got to be able to think of that and nothing else.
Hancok's half hour.
I wanted to be a doctor, but they wouldn't let me.
That saved a few lives, didn't it?
Practically everything comes from the voice. Everything is possible from that voice.
The voices there of Ray Galton and Alan Simpson, together with excerpts from their famous creations, Hancock's Half Hour and Steptoe and Son. The one with the deeper voice is Ray Galton, who's actually a tall, slender, thoughtful character, somewhat fastidious, a bit of a worrier. Conversely, Alan Simpson, the lighter of the two voices you heard, is a big bear of a man, confident and expansive. There's the magic of radio for you. Together, the two South Londoners completely dominated broadcast comedy from the 1950s to the 1970s, when Simpson decided he'd had enough. Their shows were watched every week by some 25 million people. That's more than half the population. Even in the old two-channel days before the advent of Sky Shopping Gold 2, that's a hell of a lot of people. On Hancock or Steptoe nights, the streets would empty at 8:30. During the 1964 election campaign, Harold Wilson begged the BBC to postpone Steptoe and Son on polling night in case it dissuaded Labour supporters from getting out to vote. It all happened incredibly fast, too. These days, it's almost impossible to get a sitcom script on TV, unless you're a famous actress or a stand-up comedian. Actual writers often have to wait 20 or 30 years for a chance. That's if they get one at all. But Galton and Simpson didn't face much competition as sitcom writers, because in those days, there weren't any sitcoms.
I first met Alan Simpson when we were at school, so I've known him for donkey's years. And then I met Ray through Alan.
Beryl Vertue, their former agent, is now the chairman of Hartswood Films and producer of Men Behaving Badly.
Alan and Ray met in a TB sanatorium, and they used to write material for the internal radio system. They were there a very, very long time. When you had TB in those days, you laid there till you got better. And they laid there for 4 years, so that's why they did something to pass the time away. And when they came out of the sanatorium, they sent their material to the BBC, and they sent some of these sketches that they had written in the sanatorium. And then we had this telegram which said, "Come to London." And we were all amazed by this, terribly excited. We only lived at a place called Mitcham, which is 10 miles from London. But it was what it meant. It was the significance of what London meant.
I don't really know where Hancock came out of. I suppose, like everybody of that generation, he came out of the forces.
One of their contemporaries in BBC comedy at that time was Barry Took.
He developed this act, and other people wrote for him, but simultaneously Ray and Alan were coming up writing jokes at 5 bob a time for other people. And a clever producer said, if I put part A with part B, I shall have a success. The result was that Tony Hancock got better, Ray and Alan got better, and the whole thing became a great success.
Galton, Simpson and Hancock created something revolutionary in British television comedy, on a par with Monty Python's invention 10 years later of the seamless Sandy Shaw-free sketch show. Their idea was that Hancock would manage without boom-boom gags, special guests and cameo characters with silly voices. Instead, the comedy would come from the characters, from their relationships and from the situation they found themselves confined in. In doing so, they forged a template for almost every other sitcom writer of the next 40 years, like Maurice Gran, co-writer of Shine on Harvey Moon, Goodnight Sweetheart and Birds of a Feather.
I suppose really that Galton and Simpson were, to some degree, inventing situation comedy, because virtually all comedy shows up to Hancock, I believe, used to still have a musical interlude. Even the Goons had a musical interlude. So narrative comedy was sort of struggling to get out from under variety, and they pushed it on, really, I think, to being its own genre.
And one thing that we said we like to do is try it without any interference, because that way you get a longer time to develop your characters.
Also, the other thing, we wanted to do away with jokes, and any humour would come out of the situation or the characterisation.
They really wanted to do a show without an audience, I think, and without jokes and without anything, just a stream of consciousness and all that stuff, which was sort of a fashionable idea at the time. And I think that the BBC said, I'm sorry, chaps, it's a wonderful idea, but it doesn't work. And they structured it so that it was like every other show. There was an audience and there was a warm-up man and various things.
The BBC weren't too keen on doing without the funny voices either, and foisted a regular cameo from Kenneth Williams on the initially unwilling writers.
We wrote the character of a jockey, just, you know, with no, and Kenneth came on and playing it like that, hello, and immediately all the audience fell about, and we had a funny voice back in, and we kept it in because it went so well. We weren't going to look a gift horse in the mouth, you know.
I say, and I'm cold out here. Can I come in?
There's no room, get off!
Oh, don't be like that. Move over, I'll sit on your lap.
It's very easy to write for Kenneth Williams, as I know from my own experience, and you tend to be carried away. And I think that why Williams finished with Hancock was that Tony got jealous of him. I think Tony thought, hello, this man's funnier than I am. Go in out.
Get your boot off me joystick, do you mind?
The jealous, disgruntled Hancock, described by Barry Took, doesn't square with the intelligent and thoughtful performer that Ray Galton and Alan Simpson reckoned they knew. I asked them how Hancock the man differed from his on-screen persona.
Tony was much more sophisticated, much more serious, much more intelligent, whereas the character was a pudding. But you felt sorry for him because he was also an inadequate.
What a lot of rubbish. Me, a debonair man about town, a romantic lounge lizard. I mean, look at me. That's enough. That's enough. Pretty rough lot here tonight, man.
He made him more natural. When Tony, when he was doing his stand-ups and when he was in Educating Archie, he was more seedy. You know, I mean, he was like that, talking to, oh, you little wooden, mad word, oh, flipping kids, you know. And when he did his stage act, he was basically doing terrible impressions of, people like Charles Lawton, George Arliss, who not many people had heard of then, better than now. But he didn't really have a persona for himself, so the first thing we did, really, was to get a character for Tony. And Tony gradually played it as himself.
May I have your name?
Yes, Hancock, Anthony Hancock. Twice candidate for the county council elections, defeated. Honsec, British Legion, Earls Court branch, treasurer of the darts team and the outings committee.
Yes, I only want the
Yeah, well,
name.
we're going to Margate this year by boat if there's any young nurses like yourself